25 QB is maybe not necessarily as, I don't want to use the word important. That's not the right word. Urgent. I don't know. There's not as much pressure there as you thought there might have been if Michigan hadn't landed Jaden Davis. Obviously, Kirk Campbell comes in and helps close the door. You've got your 2024 5-star QB with Jaden Davis, but Michigan's on the best of the best in the 2025 class with quarterbacks. So one thing that needs to be brought up because of its relevance, and then we're going to go through what I feel like is probably the top 3 board at this point. Ohio State took a quarterback early again, kind of surprising people here with Tavian Sinclair. I think there's at least one name on this list, if not all 3 of them might have been caught off guard by that. But Ohio State said they've got their guy. They've taken in Sinclair. We've seen how that has gone in the past, but they're hoping he sticks and that's it. But that really makes things interesting for Michigan targets here in 2025 class. I'm not sure what order I want to do this in. So why don't you pick one first of the 3 that we're going to talk about? Do you want to talk about McIntyre, Underwood, or Montgomery first here, you think?
Let's talk about Montgomery.
Okay.
He camped last week.
He's the one I feel like might have been caught off guard by the Sinclair commitment.
Yeah.
This is an Ohio kid. His brother's there.
Yeah. Yeah. So he visited last week for a camp. Obviously involved in the quarterback conversation. And the thing too with this Ohio State taking Sinclair is, are they going to go 2 quarterbacks? Because, Sinclair is this 3-star guy who is having a strong summer. So he'll likely see a bump in his ratings because that's just the way it goes. But so do they go 2 quarterbacks? Do they stick with Sinclair? That's an interesting conversation.
Does Sinclair want to be part of 2 quarterbacks? Does Montgomery want to be part of?
I don't know. That's the question. That's the flip.
I saw that rumor too, but these guys talk about they don't want to commit to a class potentially that took a QB the year prior.
Right.
Let alone in the same class.
Right.
So if that's their plan, okay, I'd be shocked personally, but
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just think that's a very interesting rumor.
Yeah. So I think, Montgomery is factored in there. I don't think he is as highly coveted as someone like a George McIntyre or a Bryce Underwood. He's still very much in the conversation, but those 2 other guys are, 1A and no, I wouldn't say 1A and 1B. I would say 1 and 2.
There's a number 1.
Yeah, on the pecking order. And I think he's involved, but ultimately we'll see. Kentucky's making a push for him too.
Yes.
So
that's what I was gonna say. I feel for the kid. He's been to Ohio State and Michigan more than any other program.
Yep.
Penn State, Kentucky, and then Georgia's there too, potentially. But yeah, a lot of these kids in the same way that, CJ Carr and Aaron Olin and Jaden Davis are linked. I think these dudes are going to be linked for a while too, because of their connections and being in the same program. So yeah, you kind of feel for him. He felt like, for a while there, it felt like Montgomery and Underwood, it was going to be like OSU or Michigan for either one, right? Like that might be how that goes. You brought up George McIntyre. We're going to get to Underwood. Everybody knows Bryce Underwood. We're going to get to him.
Yep.
George McIntyre is the number 2 QB in the 2025 class right now. He's a 5-star from Tennessee. He just took a weekend visit to Michigan. Him and Underwood, a lot of shared programs in the Venn diagram. He's in on the same programs. Tennessee, obviously, where he's from, LSU, Bama, Clemson, and then obviously Michigan. And this is where the Kirk Campbell love comes in.
Yeah. No, a 3-day visit, unofficial visit, is pretty significant if you ask me, especially for a 5-star quarterback. And I think he left with, from what I was told, Michigan is right there. Use that in quotations. Michigan's right there for him. So that would mean that he's right there at the top. And again, as you said, we're praising Kirk Campbell because he's largely responsible for this uptick this uptick in recruiting. So he's doing a really good job. So I don't think Michigan would get McIntyre at the end of the day. I think he would stay, somewhere in, Tennessee is probably my best bet right now. I do think Michigan's in the conversation, but all eyes are on Bryce Underwood, and they rightfully deserve to be, because the kid's a stud right in your backyard. You're going to get Jeremiah Beasley, The two are friends. So, I think, again, it's good that you had a guy like McIntyre in for a 3-day visit, and I do think Michigan will be a factor for him. However, I think the focus is clearly on Bryce Underwood, and I think there's a good reason for that to be the case.
Well, let's not waste any more time. Bryce Underwood, #1 quarterback in the 2025 class, arguably the best player overall in the 2025 class. He was just at Alabama.
Yep.
He's been to LSU. When the OSU commit with Sinclair came up, I told you, I didn't think that was an Underwood thing. I think if he was going to leave home, I feel like he's going to go far. Like he would potentially go south or whatever. Otherwise, but he obviously loves Michigan, and that wasn't the case a while ago. We have, again, Kurt Campbell really brought Michigan back into this recruitment and he's in Ann Arbor all the time. Mm-hmm. So again, he's the #1 quarterback in this class. He should absolutely explore his options. He's going to these other big time programs, but I think Michigan has made it clear he's the top target. And I think Michigan feels pretty good about where things stand with him.
Yeah, I'm hesitant to say that Michigan leads, but I am starting to believe that Michigan is the leader for him after every passing week. I mean, was on campus again for Michigan's 7-on-7 camp with Belleville, who won the event thanks to, Underwood being the quarterback. But yeah, I mean, Campbell has brought this thing back from the dead. This thing was not a factor a couple months ago. Now we're talking, Michigan is, it's right there. I mean, I'm not going to say Michigan's going to land him 100%. It's done. It's all a, formality. But if I were to say, you were to ask me if I think Michigan leads right now, I would say yes. I think they do. I don't know if they do, but I think they do. And I think that Underwood has made that clear to the staff that they're highly considered and they're right there at the top. Why waste your time on a guy that, wouldn't reciprocate your interest? So the visit, you have to follow the visits. We're talking almost like once a week visits at this point, in the summer. I mean, it's crazy. And you've got,
he's clearly comfortable there, man.
Yeah, that's home.
It's that vibe, right? He can show up on a Wednesday.
Beloved around the Detroit area. When I interviewed him for that camp, so many adults and people came up to him and just shook his hand and, asked how he's doing. And then he would ask, how their families are doing and stuff like that. This guy is loved in the Detroit area. And, this is home for him. So I'm not going to sit here and say, Michigan is absolutely going to get Bryce Underwood, but I think if this continues to trend in the direction it is, I think they'll get Bryce Underwood. And, that would be a huge piece to the 25 puzzle if they can get him in early. But he hinted at me. He hinted to me when I spoke to him during that Wayne State camp that he was getting kind of overwhelmed with the process.
Yeah, he doesn't feel like a Davis guy.
No,
right.
He's a little more quiet and to himself, and he's overwhelmed with this process. So I know he's looking to at least cut down his list of schools here soon. And obviously Michigan's going to make that list. There's no doubt about it in my mind. And, we'll see what happens from there, because quarterbacks do like to commit early. They like to get that out of the way, but I don't know if they will do it a whole year early. But again, if he's sick of the process and knows where he wants to go, why wait? So we'll see what happens there. But I am cautiously optimistic that Michigan is in an excellent position to land Bryce Underwood.
Yeah.
And that's a stark difference from what you and I were talking about a couple of weeks ago. Where
I didn't like bringing him up.
Maybe, he might stay, he might go south. Now it's looking like he might not even leave the state. So that's, again, credit to Kurt Campbell for completely flipping that narrative on its head and getting right back into this thing. I mean, there's no doubt about it that this is, Kurt Campbell has a ton to do with this, and he deserves a lot of praise for the work he's done on the recruiting trail.
I keep bringing up Dante Moore and Donovan Edwards. Both were top at their position in their class. Both had strong pulls to Michigan, backyard, blah, blah, blah. Both explored their options, including rivals and SEC schools. One felt, you know what, after doing all this, I do want to leave. I don't want to be near home. And then the other one, Donovan Edwards, was like, no, this is home. I want to be a part of Michigan's, at the time, resurgence was how it was phrased to him. So we are running a little quick today. So Josh, for those of you listening on podcasts or watching a playback on YouTube, we do go live Sundays at 6 with the show. We interact with comments, and when we have time, we take some questions. So in line with Underwood, like Nate pops in here kind of saying what we said. He likes to commit, QBs like him like to commit early, potentially build a class. Do we think he could have a decision? I mean, how quick could we see a decision from him? I told you it's going to be a guy that I think is going to be a lot of Michigan games in the fall.
Yeah.
Do we think this is like, I'm going to finish my football season, high school first, and we'll get into like winter, spring, or could we see something this fall from Underwood potentially?
Maybe. I mean, it's hard. It's too hard to say. Like, I don't have a crystal ball, and I can't really.
No, that's not the question. Is when will he commit? Josh, give me the exact date.
Right. I could see a situation where he could commit in the fall, but I don't know. I mean, he's still got a whole year.
I think it would take a moment. I think he's at a Michigan game. We hear this so much with some players that like they already felt like they knew, blah, blah, blah. He's at a Michigan game and it's either the vibe of the stadium or something happens, whatever, that just like clicks and he's like, okay, this is it.
Yeah, it could
I think it would take
the moment
like
too. You just it's tough to say. There's really nothing out there that suggests he's gonna wrap it up as soon as possible. I mean, he could just cut down his list and focus on. I mean, it could be a list of 8, could be a list of 10, could be a list of 3. I mean, we don't really know what that list looks like. So yeah. I think we'll get a better understanding of what his timeline might look like when he cuts that list down. And I know he says it's coming soon. So I don't know how soon is soon, but we'll kind of get a better feel of how things are looking and trending in terms of a decision once he makes that cut down.
I think the Alabama offer was a big deal in a positive way in terms of like the pace of his recruitment. Is it a threat to Michigan? Absolutely. But for me, I think that felt like, okay, whether he's going to publicly put it out or not, I think he's got a few top schools in mind already.
Yeah.
And you can put the pieces together to see who they are. He's always going to feel comfortable at Michigan. That's been evident already. Beasley committing to Michigan very soon will be interesting because that change, like you said, maybe changes the dynamic there of that relationship. And again, I think Jaden Davis is just kind of waiting for the moment to be told. He's come out and said like he's not a big pushy guy in terms of being a recruiter. But I think if you've got JJ and Jaden, once they're told like, hey, help us out here with a little bit with Bryce, and you're kind of creating that relationship of lineage there. It's just crazy to think of where we were a few months ago. I didn't even like bringing him up because I'm just thinking this is going to be Dante Moore. The dude wants to go south, right? Or USC maybe, whatever it might be. So I do think Michigan's offense this year could be impactful as well. I think if JJ is throwing it more, if Michigan is more creative in the passing game, I think that's something Underwood's going to like. Michigan was kind of giving Jaden Davis some sneak previews in practice. That's been talked about as well. Mm-hmm. Underwood's a guy that could go to an LSU or a USC and throw for just stupid statistics. So I think Michigan maybe giving the argument that that's something he could do here would only be helpful, right? So